Members, there are several of you on the board. I want to explain what we're going to do. We're not in introduction of guests and points of personal privileges. That we just did that for proclamation. We have a special guest presentation, and so I'm going to call on Senator Kimberly Yee to introduce them, but we are going to be in recess because we'll have non-members coming to the floor. So we're going to go into recess to the sound of the gavel, and then once this brief presentation is completed, then we will come back and continue our work. We're in recess.
Thank you. Members, Mr. President, members, we are so privileged today to be joined by the 5th grade class at Adams Traditional Academy. A number of legislators from the North Phoenix area last Friday had the great privilege of visiting with this charter school in North Phoenix. Adams Traditional Academy's purpose of education is to raise informed citizens to instill patriotism and love of country in their students. The 5th grade curriculum includes an in-depth study of the American Revolution, its roots, and the results. The Declaration of Independence is the cornerstone document from which our country's ideals flow, and therefore, it is a pivotal piece for the students to understand and memorize. The 5th grade students of Mrs. Barron's, if you would raise your hand, and Mr. Freeman's class have spent the better part of the school year memorizing the Declaration of Independence. They were required to memorize monthly pieces, which was learned in small portions every morning throughout the school year. We thank their principal, Dr. Sharon Malone, raise your hand, and their teachers, Mrs. Barron and Mr. Freeman, for their work with the students, and we thank the students for being here today to recite for us the Declaration of Independence.
Necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them He has refused his assent to laws the most wholesome and necessary for the public good.
He has forbidden his governors to pass laws of immediate and pressing importance, unless suspended in their operation, till his assent should be obtained, and when so suspended, he has utterly neglected to attend to them.
He has refused to pass other laws from the accommodation of large districts of people, unless those people relinquish the right of representation in the legislature, a right inestimable to them and formidable to tyrants only.
He has called together legislative bodies at places unusual, uncomfortable, and distant for the depository of their public records for the sole purpose of fatiguing them into compliance with his measures.
He has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness his invasions on the rights of the people.
He has refused for a long time, after such dissolutions, to cause others to be elected, whereby the legislative powers, incapable of annihilation, have returned to the people at large for their exercise, the state remaining in the meantime exposed to all the dangers of invasions from without and convulsions within.
He has endeavored to prevent the population of these states, for that purpose obstructing the laws of naturalization of foreigners, refusing to pass others to encourage their migrations hither, and raising the conditions of new appropriations of lands.
He has obstructed the administration of justice by refusing his assent to laws for establishing judiciary powers.
He has made judges dependent on his will alone for the tenure of their offices and the amount and payment of their salaries. He has erected a multitude of new offices and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance.
He has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislator.
He is effected to render the military independent of and superior to the civil power. He has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation.
For quartering large bodies of armed troops among us.
For protecting them by a mock trial from punishments for any murders which they shall commit on the inhabitants of these states.
For cutting off our trade with all parts of the world.
For imposing taxes on us without our consent.
For depriving us in many cases of the benefits of trial by jury. For transporting us beyond seas to be tried for pretended offenses.
For abolishing the free system of English laws in a neighboring province, establishing therein an arbitrary government, and enlarging its boundaries so as to render at once an example and fit instrument for introducing the same absolute rule into these colonies.
For taking away our charters, abolishing our most valuable laws, and altering fundamentally the forms of our government.
For suspending our own legislatures and declaring themselves invested with power to legislate for us in all cases whatsoever.
He has abdicated government here by declaring us out of his protection and waging war against us.
He has plundered our seas, ravaged our coasts, burnt our towns, and destroyed the lives of our people.
He is at this time transporting large armies of foreign mercenaries to complete the works of death, desolation, and tyranny, already begun with the circumstances of cruelty and perfidy, scarcely paralleled in the most barbarous ages and totally unworthy of the head of a civilized nation.
He has constrained our fellow citizens taken captive on the high seas to bear arms against their country, or to become the executioners of their friends and brethren, or to fall themselves by their hands.
He has excited domestic insurrections among us, and has endeavored to bring on the inhabitants of our frontiers the merciless Indian savages, whose known rule of warfare is an undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions.
In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitioned for redress in the most humble terms. Our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injuries. A prince whose character is thus marked by every act which may define a tyrant is unfit to be a ruler of a free people. Nor have we been wanting in attentions to our British brethren. We have warned them from time to time of attempts by their legislatures to extend
Senator Yee.
Thank you so much, class. Members, if we could all memorize this document and remember our founding principles each day that we are down here at the legislature, it would be so good. Thank you so much, classes. We will take a break and we'll do a quick photo.
Thank you. Senate is now called to order.